How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video on cheap sleeper cars. I did £20,000, I did £10,000, and on both occasions I asked you for 1,000 likes to do the next one in the series. Now we're doing £5,000. Now I don't think I can go much lower than £5,000, but if you think I can, hit the like button, 2,000 likes, and I'll do like sub 2k or something ridiculous. I don't even know at this point. I'll just go lower. Anyway, as always, my definition of a sleeper car is a car that doesn't look particularly fast, but is exceptionally fast. And all 5 cars in this list do, to some degree, achieve that. Remember that I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ, and remember that whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all that good stuff is important to remember. Remember to subscribe as well if you're new, but without further ado, let's get into the video. First up, we have a big, aging family 4x4 in the Mercedes ML55 AMG, which hides a 5.4-litre V8 engine beneath its unassuming exterior, which puts out 347 brake horsepower, taking the car from 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds. Not bad for a car that weighs over 2 tons. The M-Class, which is now known as the GLE class, basically sits in the mid-size luxury SUV category, and the ML55 AMG was the top-of-the-line model for the first generation. They only switched the name as BMW felt it was too close to their M lineup, hence despite it being the M class, the car is called the ML55. Originally it was meant to replace the G class, but it ended up being just another car in their lineup, and was originally meant to be developed and produced on the same platform as the Mitsubishi Pajero. This deal fell apart and Mercedes ended up producing the car on their own. Its styling is pretty uninteresting in my opinion, nothing that would draw your attention to it as anything more than an old, boring SUV, but that performance really does speak for itself. It's not even particularly more aggressively styled than any other M-Class cars, it just has what AMG refer to as power domes on the bonnet and a slightly different set of bumpers with the rear enabling 2 exhausts. The interior is pretty average for the time too, and as an SUV it's got an absolutely massive boot, so in terms of practicality you are laughing, even if it's pretty savage on fuel at 19 miles per gallon quoted by Mercedes, and road tax is up to £340 per year. Plus most are not compliant with ultra low emissions here in the UK, so that'll cost you nicely too. These are listed for a minimum of around £4,000. Of a 5 grand you're looking at a 2000 example with around 60,000 miles on the clock. Power steering issues are common on these, mostly caused by leaks in the system. In terms of the engine and transmission, owners on forums are really positive about their longevity, and many people have put upwards of 150,000 miles on them. One owner even noted hitting 500,000 kilometers on his ML55, which is just insane. However, for people that have had problems, the word nightmare was often used, with many people upset about the price of repairs. Basically, try to find one that's been looked after well. Next up is a nice boring family saloon or estate, the Subaru Legacy R.Spec B, which has a 3-litre boxer 6 making 241 brake horsepower, which gets the car from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. Not only does this beast perform well, it's got some pretty cool features to keep owners pleased. For example, if you go for an auto from 2006 onwards, you'll get the sport shift flappy paddles to feel like you're in something far more exotic. The car also has a limited slip diff to help put the power down to those 4 wheels. I recommend going for a manual, partially because I prefer manuals, partially because they're the rarer choice with the Legacy, and partially because the manual does 0 to 60 1.2 seconds faster than the automatic, so the auto kinda negates some of the sleeper vibes. It also has vehicle dynamics control, which intervenes to keep the car in a straight line when things get squirrely, but you can turn this off, which puts more of the power bias towards the rear and enables you to drift pretty convincingly. It's probably better to just find a post-facelift example regardless, as the quality of the interior is much better, plus the exterior of the car got a slightly more modern look and feel, which I think the pre-facelift sort of lacks. It also gained some larger wheel arches and a nice little spoiler, as well as some new 18-inch alloys for your troubles, while still maintaining an unassuming look compared to its performance. If you go for an estate, you increase your sleeper vibes even more, as the car has an absolutely massive boot, so it can be used for taking the dogs out or moving lots of heavy items or whatever else you fancy. It really is a great all-rounder in that respect, although road tax is hefty, up to £585 per year. £3,500 is the minimum you'll find these listed for, and they're still pretty high mileage at the 5k mark. There are known issues with these, like leaks from the front timing chain case and lower section of the engine, misfires from bad plugs, head gasket leaks, corrosion on the coolant pipes, synchro issues on manuals, and slow changes on autos. Not as bad as the dreaded 2.5 litre engine, but worth being aware aware of. In third, we have an unassuming Japanese luxury saloon, the Lexus LS430, which has a 4.3 litre V8 engine putting out 278 brake horsepower, which gets the car from 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, matching the Scooby. This is the third generation LS and was built to include a bunch of new technology and interior features for Lexus. The company literally based the interior on a guest room from a Four Seasons hotel, and the seats were inspired by the first class seats in British and Japan Airways flights. Clearly Lexus wanted to go down the route of luxury with this beast. It even comes with a sort of fridge between the rear seats if you get an ultra luxury spec example, and yes, that's the actual name of that spec. It's not really a fridge as it doesn't run when the car is off, but it basically takes cold air from the rear AC unit and will keep your beverages nice and cool if you're going on a long drive. Anyway, less about the fridge. The exterior is a very simple design with nothing blasé about it, but it was developed in the same wind tunnel as the bullet train in order to be more aerodynamic than previous generations. The car also gained some additional comfort features like air suspension, a larger boot, curtains for the rear windows, parking sensors and rain sensors which were pretty new at the time, and of course that massive V8 engine to embarrass people at traffic lights. The car also had a facelift in 2003 which lasted up until the 4th generation was released in 2006. It basically made some minor updates to the exterior and a few additional tech changes and some more safety features too. These start at around £3,000 and for £5,000 you're looking at a 2001 example with around 70,000 miles on the clock. Owners absolutely rave about the reliability on these. Go have a look at some forums and look how many times they write the word bulletproof. One very kind owner collated a list of all problems mentioned on forums and ordered them by most common, and the key ones to note are transmission issues on the 04 models, valve cover gasket issues, and engine oil seals needing replacing, which can be quite expensive as this is ultimately a luxury car. But as is often the way with Lexus, many people attest to doing hundreds of thousands of miles in these. I hope you enjoyed the video. I wanted to take 1 second to say a massive thank you to all of you for all the support recently. It's been ridiculous, honestly. Like, I'm on the way to hitting 100k subscribers this year. Like, I'm do it, and it's all because of you guys. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. I would really appreciate it. And also comment down below to let me know any other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. Just missing out on the top spot is a personal favourite of mine, a 5-door hatchback that you'd only realise is hot by its little spoiler, the Mazda3 MPS, which has a 2.3 litre turbocharged inline-4 engine which puts out 256 brake horsepower, taking it from 0 to 60 in 5.9 seconds. Depending on where you are from, you might know this car under different titles like Mazda Speed Accela in Japan or Mazda Speed 3 in the US. Ultimately the idea was simple, a sporty hatchback with performance beyond its looks. MPS stands for Mazda Performance Series, a name you might also associate with the Mazda 6 MPS. In fact, the 3 MPS shares its engine with the 6 MPS and they share a faint resemblance, if only because they're both Mazdas. That engine actually appeared in Ward's 10 best engines list for 3 years straight, although I'm not 100% sure why, as it's not always known for reliability, which I'll get onto in a bit. The 3 has a slightly wider and more aggressive body to the standard car, but remains relatively sedate when compared with rivals like the Focus ST, despite being massively capable still, helped in part by its limited slip differential, although I've been in one of these and they do seem to have a fair bit of torque steer still when cornering. The interior, though very spacious, is also quite basic to match the exterior, with a relatively cheap feeling throughout, and nothing to really shout home about. But that's kind of the point, it's very much a wolf in sheep's clothing, a cheap and cheerful Mazda with some insane performance. £4,000 is the minimum you'll find these listed for, and for £5,000 you're still looking at pretty high mileage. Now I mentioned that engine's reliability, and while specialists suggest they are generally very reliable cars, some owners have suffered timing chain issues resulting from a rattling VVT actuator. Turbo seals are also susceptible to wear and tear, so be wary of this. Also, as a Mazda that's getting on a bit in age, check for rust, particularly behind the bumpers and in wheel arches, as it's not uncommon on these. Taking the top spot is an absolute beast of a Jag that to the untrained eye would just look like another old executive saloon. It's the Jaguar S-Type R, which has a 4.2 litre supercharged V8 putting out 400 brake horsepower, which gets the car from 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds. This car came to exist as a competitor to the BMW M5 and the Mercedes E55 AMG and reused the nameplate of the 1963 to 1968 Jag S-Type, which it bears some resemblance to. It also completely slapped its competitors, as on release it was the fastest production road saloon car in the world. Oh, and by the way, this is a predecessor to the Jag XF, just so you kind of know where it fits in their lineup. The car has a claimed top speed of 191 miles per hour with the limiter removed, which is pure insanity. Definitely certified sleeper speeds, and for under £5,000 that's absolutely ridiculous. Some owners have also done some basic modifications to the supercharger pulleys and messed around with the ECU to get the car to surpass 200 miles per hour and 500 brake horsepower, so even more sleeper potential available. To confirm the car's sleeper status, one of the main criticisms it's received is that it looks too similar to a Rover 75. In fact, a lot of people think it's pretty ugly. Jeremy Clarkson even named it the worst looking car available for sale in 2004. Compared to the standard car though, it's a completely re-engineered beast, and the R did get some visibly sportier features too, like the 18-inch alloys, mesh grille, and slightly modified body kit including skirts, bumpers and a little spoiler. $4,500 is around the minimum you'll find these listed for, and for $5,000 you're looking at a 2002 example with around 85,000 miles on the clock. Reliability is heavily dependent on how well these have been maintained. Jag specialists note a few key plug and oil change dates that need to be hit for peace of mind. The coolant header tank can split, and the ECU can have some software issues that are relatively simple to fix. There are some other known problems with some of the piping failing around the supercharger, and bushes should be checked for wear, particularly if you get any knocking noises, as this car is quite heavy. A final point to note, rust is also a known issue on these, particularly around the sills and wheel arches, so worth checking if you're on the hunt for one. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would really appreciate a like. As I said, 2,000 likes and I will try and go maybe sub £2,000. I don't know if that's possible. We can give it a go. It might be a bit difficult. Massive thanks to the patrons as always for their support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Listen.